In the Native State was not the first play I had written at the urging of John Tydeman, who was head of BBC Radio Drama between 1986 and 1994. I met John, my first friend at Broadcasting House, when I was called in by Richard Imison, script editor, after submitting a couple of short plays in 1964. John was already a seasoned radio producer who had directed early work by Carol Churchill and Joe Orton, among others. By the time of In the Native State, which was 1991, John was the big cheese in radio drama, in tandem with Richard, who was coming to the end of 28 years as script editor. A postcard from one or the other reminding me that it was time to write a radio play was an occasional event in my life. John ended up directing at least half a dozen of my plays, which owed their existence to the fact that I didn't want to let him or Richard down. It was personal. 50 years ago, when we were young men, Richard my age, John a year older, Broadcasting House was like an open house in a way inconceivable now. One day I met them in the corridor. They were in high spirits. They said they'd had an idea for plays about unusual jobs, so what I think about doing one of them. I said I'd do one about the woman who was the speaking clock. The next year I did one about a man painting the Forth Bridge. But all the time was speeding up and the gaps between radio plays became longer. In the Native State came after a 10-year interval, and it was the last one of mine which Tidy directed. Tidy, when a man is familiarly known by half his surname with a Y on the end, it says something about him. Tidy had a teddy bear quality. He was quite huggable, even while he bestrode his studio like a ship's captain who comes into his own when he's on the bridge. We continued to exchange postcards until not long before he died last month at the age of 83. This repeat broadcast of In the Native State is to honor a producer-director who lived for radio drama above all. It's a sentimental notion, but I like to think that radio waves bear the essence of Tidy through space forever.
Yes, I am in heat, like a bride in a bath, without secrets, soaked in heated air that liquefies to the touch and floods, shortening the breath. Yes, I am discovered. Heat has found me out, a stain that stops at nothing, not the squeezed gates or soft gutters. It brims as I shift, it webs my fingers round my pen. Yes, think of a woman in a blue dress, sat on a straight-back chair at a plain table on the veranda of a guest house, writing about the weather. Or think, if you prefer, of bitches, cats, goats, monkeys at it like knives in the jacaranda.
Do you want me to stop, Miss Crewe?
What?
Would you like to rest?
No, I don't want to rest, do you?
Not at all, but you crossed your legs, and I thought perhaps...
Oh, I'm so sorry, so I did. There. Is that how I was?
You are patient with me. I think your nature is very kind.
Do you think so, Mr. Das?
I am sure of it. May I ask you a personal question?
That is a personal question.
Oh, my goodness, is it?
I always think so. It always feels like one. Carte blanche is what you're asking, Mr. Das. Am I to lay myself bare before you?
My question was only about your poem.
At least you knew it was personal.
I will not ask it now, of course.
On that understanding, I will answer it. My poem is about heat.
Oh. Thank you.
I resume my pose. Pen to paper, legs uncrossed. You know, you are the first man to paint my toenails.
Actually, I am occupied in the folds of your skirt.
Ah, in that you are not the first.
You have been painted before? But of course you have. Many times, I expect.
You know, Mr. Das, Your nature is much kinder than mine.
Do you think you take after your father?
I don't know. I would like to think so, but my father was a man who suffered for his beliefs, and I've never had to do that, so...
I meant being a painter. You are a painter like your father.
Oh, yes. Yes, I'm a painter like my father, though not at all like my father, of course.
Your father was an Indian painter, you mean?
An Indian painter? Well, I'm as Indian as he was, but yes, I suppose I'm not a particularly Indian painter. Not an Indian painter particularly, or rather...
Not particularly an Indian painter.
Yes, but then nor was he, apart from being Indian.
As you are?
Yes.
Though you are not at all like him.
No. Yes. But perhaps if you'd seen my work... Oh, thank you.
Of course, you are a successful painter.
I didn't mean that, Mrs. Swan. Only that my father was a quite different kind of artist. A portrait painter, as you know.
I can't say I do, Mr. Das. Until I received your letter, your father was unknown to me. In fact, the attribution unknown Indian artist summed up the situation exactly. If indeed it was your father who made the portrait of my sister.
Oh, the portrait is certainly my father's work, Mrs. Swan, and I have brought the evidence to show you. I've been in such a state. I've done no work for a week. You simply cannot imagine my feelings when I saw the book in the shop window. My excitement. You see, I carry my copy everywhere.
Well, I hope there'll be lots like you, Mr. Das.
There will be no one like me, Mrs. Swan. It was not the book, of course, but the painting on the jacket and the same on the frontispiece inside. My father was not unknown in Jumapur. Surely the publishers or somebody...
They made inquiries by letter, but it was all 60 years ago.
Yes. If only my father could have known that one day his portrait of Flora Crewe would...
By the way, what were your father's beliefs?
Why, we are Hindu.
You said he had suffered for his beliefs.
Oh, I meant his opinions, for which he suffered imprisonment.
Who put him in prison?
You did.
I did?
I mean the British.
Oh, I see, we did. But how did we know what his opinions were?
Well, I suppose he took part in various actions.
Then he was in prison for his actions, not his opinions, Mr. Das, and obviously deserved what he got. Will you have a slice of cake?
Thank you.
Victoria sponge or Battenberg?
Oh.
The sponge is my own. The raspberry jam, too.
I would love some.
Ignore it. The clock has decided to be merely decorative. It chimes at random. Here we are, then.
Thank you.
But all that must have been before you were born. Independence.
Oh, yes, long before. I was the child of my father's second marriage. I was born in 49, and these events took place in Jumapur in 1930.
1930? But that was when Flora was in Jumapur.
Yes, I know. That is why I am here.
Mr. Das, I'm considering whether to ask you a delicate question, as between friends and artists.
Oh, Miss Crewe, I am transported beyond my most fantastical hopes of our fellowship. This is a red-letter day without dispute.
If you are going to be so Indian, I shan't ask it.
But I cannot be less Indian than I am.
You could if you tried. I'm not sure I'm going to ask it now.
Then you need not, dear Miss Crewe. You considered the unasked, the almost asked question united us for a moment in its intimacy. We came together in your mind like a spark in a vacuum, and the redness of the day's letter will not be denied.
You're still doing it, Mr. Das.
You wished me to be less Indian?
I did say that, but I think what I meant was for you to be more Indian, or at any rate Indian, not Englished up and all over me like a Labrador and knocking things off tables with your tail. So waggish of you, Mr. Das, to compare my mind to a vacuum. You only do it with us. I don't believe that left to yourself you can't have an ordinary conversation without jumping backwards through hoops of delight. With hoops of delight, I think I mean. Actually, I do know what I mean. I want you to be with me as you would be if I were Indian.
An Indian, Miss Crewe? Oh, dear, that is a mental construction which has no counterpart in the material world.
So is a unicorn, but you can imagine it.
You can imagine it, but you cannot mount it.
Imagining it was all I was asking in my case.
Oh, my gracious, I had no intention, I assure you.
No. You cannot unwag your very best wag. You cleared the table. The bric-a-brac is on the parquet. The specimen vase, the snuff box, the souvenir of Broadstairs.
You are cruel to me, Miss Crewe.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to be. It's my nature. Please come out from behind your easel. Look at me.
May we fall silent, please? I prefer to work in silence.
I've spoiled everything. I'm very sorry.
The shadow has moved. I must correct it.
Yes, it has moved. It cannot be corrected. We must wait for tomorrow. I'm so sorry.
When my father met Flora Crewe, he'd been a widower for several years. Although he was still quite a young man, a year or two younger than her, yes. The beginning of the hot weather in 1930. He would have been not yet 34. He had lost his wife to cholera and he was childless. I knew nothing of my father's life before Swaraj. The British Empire was prehistory to me. By the time I was old enough to be curious, my father was over 60. An old gentleman who spoke very little, except when he sometimes read aloud to me. I say read to me, but really he read to himself with me in attendance. He liked to read in English, Robert Browning, Tennyson, Macaulay's Lays of Ancient Rome, and Dickens, of course.
How surprising.
Oh, yes. He went from a vernacular school to Elphinstone College in Bombay. And you only have to look at Elphinstone College to know it was built to give us a proper British education.
I really meant how surprising in view of his opinions. But I spoke without thinking. Your father resented the British and loved English literature, which was perfectly consistent of him. And I have interrupted you. You haven't mentioned your mother.
My mother speaks no English. She is from a village. Peasant farmers. No, plot holders. She was born in the year Flora Crewe came to Jummapur, and she married when she was 16. It was not from her that I learned that my father was a thorn in the flesh of the British, and was still remembered for it. I might say is honoured for it.
By whom?
By his son.
It does you credit.
In Bengal and the United Provinces, all over British India, of course, there were thousands of people who did as much and more, and went to jail. But in Jummapur, we were loyal, as you would say. We had been loyal to the British right through the First War of Independence.
What war was that?
The Rising of 1857.
Oh, you mean the mutiny. What did you call it?
Dear Mrs. Swan, imperial history is only the view from... No, please, let us not argue. I promise you I didn't come to give you a history lesson.
You seem ill-equipped to do so. We were your Romans, you know. We might have been your Normans.
Oh, and did you expect us to be grateful?
That's neither here nor there. I don't suppose I'd have been grateful if a lot of Romans turned up and started laying down the law and the language and telling us we were all one country now, so Wessex had to stop fighting Mercia and so forth. What a cheek, is probably what I would have thought. Go away and take your roads and your baths with you. It doesn't matter what I would have thought. It's what I think now that matters. You speak English better than most young people I meet. Did you go to school here?
No, I went to a convent school in... You are spreading a net for me, Mrs. Swan.
What net would that be? Have some more cake.
Oh, Mrs. Swan, you are a very wicked woman. You advance a preposterous argument and try to fill my mouth with cake so I cannot answer you. I will resist you and your cake. We were the Romans. We were up to date when you were a backward nation. The foreigners who invaded you found a third world country. Even when you discovered India in the age of Shakespeare, we already had our Shakespeares, and our science, architecture, our literature and art. We had a culture older and more splendid. We were rich. After all, that's why you came.
We made you a proper country, and when we left you fell straight to pieces like Humpty Dumpty. Look at the map. You should feel nothing but shame.
Oh, yes. I am ashamed. I'm a guest in your house, and I have been...
No, only provocative. We will change the subject.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that clock has gone quite mad. It's gained 20 minutes since this morning. There seems no point in putting it back.
No, we cannot put it back. I'm so sorry.
While having tiffin on the veranda of my bungalow, I spilled kedgeree on my dungarees and had to go to the gymkhana in my pyjamas, looking like a coolie.
I was buying chutney in the bazaar when a thug who had escaped from the chowki ran amok and killed a boxwala for his loot, creating a hullabaloo and landing himself in the Mulligatawny.
I went doolally at the Durbar and was sent back to Blighty in a dooley, feeling rather dicky, with a cup of cha and a chit for a chotapeg.
Yes, and the Barasab who looked so pucker in his topi sent a coolie to the Memsab.
No, you can't have Mem Saab and Saab, that's cheating. And anyway, I've already said coolie.
I concede, Miss Crew. You are the Hobson-Jobson champion.
Ah, you are chivalrous, Mr. Das. So I'll confess I had help. I found a whole list of Anglo-Indian words in my bedside drawer for the benefit of travellers.
But I know both languages, so you still win on handicap.
Where did you learn everything, Mr. Das?
From books. I like Dickens and Browning and Shakespeare, of course, but my favourite is Miss Agatha Christie, The Mysterious Affair at Styles. Oh, the woman is a genius. But I would like to write like Macaulay.
Oh, dear.
I have to thank Lord Macaulay for English, you know. It was his idea, when he was in the government of India, that English should be taught to us all. He wanted to supply the East India Company with clerks, but he was sowing dragon's teeth. Instead of babus, he produced lawyers, journalists, civil servants. He produced Gandhi. We have so many languages, you know, that English is the only language the nationalists can communicate in. That is a very good joke on Macaulay, don't you think?
Are you a nationalist, Mr. Das?
Ah, that is a very interesting question. But we shouldn't have stopped. It's getting late for you. I must work more quickly.
It's only 10:30.
No, it's nearly April, and that is becoming late.
Yes, it seems hotter than ever. Would you like some more lemonade?
No, thank you. No lemonade. Miss Crew, you haven't looked at my painting yet.
No, not yet. I never look. Do you mind?
No.
You do, really. But I once asked a painter, can I look, and he said, why, when I paint a table, I don't have to show it to the table.
I said you had been painted before.
Only once.
A portrait?
Not in the way you mean. It was a nude.
Oh.
Unusually. He painted his friends clothed. For nudes he used models. I believe I was his friend, but perhaps not. Perhaps a used model only. It hardly matters, he was dead so soon afterwards. He was not so kind to me as you are. I had to lie with my shoulders flat, but my hips twisted towards the canvas. I could hardly move afterwards.
Do you have the painting?
No.
Where is it?
Nowhere. A man I thought I might marry destroyed it. So after that I didn't want to be painted again.
Oh.
But luckily I forgot that when you asked me. I must have got over it without realizing. My goodness, what a red-letter day you are having. There's a man on a horse.
Good morning. Miss Crew, I think?
Yes, good morning. Do you know him? How do you do?
He is the assistant.
May I get down a moment?
Of course. What a beautiful animal. Assistant what?
Captain Durrance.
Thank you.
Come on up. Do join us.
Oh, it's Mr. Das, isn't it?
Good morning, sir. But we have never met.
Oh, but I know you. And Miss Crew, your fame precedes you.
Thank you, but
I'm from the Residency, David Durrance.
how do you do?
Oh, but look here. I'm interrupting the artist.
Oh, we had stopped.
Oh, may one look? Oh, I say. Coming along jolly well, don't you think, Miss Crew?
I must be going. I have overstayed my time today.
But we'll continue tomorrow.
Yes, perhaps a little earlier, if it suits you. I will leave everything just inside the door, if that is all right. And the easel?
Yes, of course. Why don't you leave the canvas to it? It's quite safe.
Yes, I have a drape for it. Thank you. There.
Like shutting up the parrot for the night.
There we are. Thank you for the lemonade, Miss Crewe. An absolute treat, I promise you. Goodbye, sir. And, yes? And, until tomorrow?
Yes. Goodbye. I'll put my shoes on. Sorry about my toes, but I like to wriggle them when I'm working.
I'll only stay a minute. My chief asked me to look in, just to make sure there's nothing we can do for you.
There's a servant who comes with the guest house, though he has a way of disappearing. But would you like some tea?
Oh, no, nothing for me. Really. We might have found you more comfortable quarters, you know. Not quite so in the town.
How did you know I was here?
Now, there's a point. Usually we know of arrivals because the first thing they do is drop in a card. But in your case, rumours in the bazaar, so to speak. Are you an old hand here, Miss Crewe?
No, I've never been to India before. I came up from Bombay just a few days ago.
But you have friends here, perhaps?
No. I got on a boat and I came knowing no one. I have friends in England who have friends here. Actually, one friend.
In Jumapur, this friend?
No, the friend. My friend is in London, of course. His friends are in different places in Rajputana. And I will be going to Delhi and then to the Punjab, I hope.
Now I see. And your friend in London has friends in Jumapur?
Yes.
Like Mr. Das?
No. Are you a policeman of some kind, Mr. Durrance?
Me? No. Oh, I'm sorry if I sound like one.
Well, you do a bit. I'm travelling with letters of introduction from Mr. Joshua Chamberlain to a number of social clubs and literary societies. I speak on the subject of literary life in London in return for board and lodging. So, you see, I couldn't have taken advantage of your kindness without giving offence to my hosts.
The game is different here. By putting up at the residency, you would have gained respect, not lost it.
Thank you. But what about self-respect?
Well, as long as all is well. So, you are following in Chamberlain's footsteps. All is explained.
I don't think I explained it, but yes, I am. He spoke in Jumapur 3 years ago on the subject of empire.
Yes. Is he a good friend?
Yes.
Did you know he was some sort of communist?
I thought he might be. He stood twice for Parliament as the communist candidate.
I amuse you. That's all right. Amusing our distinguished visitors is among my duties.
Well, don't be so stuffy. And call again, if you like.
Thank you. How long will you be with us?
I'm expected in Jaipur, but they don't mind when I come.
I'm sure you'll have a marvellous time. There are wonderful things to see. Meanwhile, please consider yourself an honorary member of the club. Mention my name, but I'll put you in the book.
Thank you.
Well...
I wish I had a lump of sugar for your horse. Next time.
Oh, he's my main indulgence. I wish I'd been here when a good horse went with the job.
Yes. What is your job? You mentioned your chief.
The resident. He represents the government here.
The British government.
Delhi. The viceroy, in fact. Jumapur is not British India. You understand that?
Yes. But it's all the empire, isn't it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. But there's about 500 Rajas and Maharajas and Nabobs and so on who run bits of it. Well, nearly half of it, actually, by treaty. And we're here to make sure they don't get up to mischief.
I knew you were a kind of policeman.
Miss Crewe, would you have dinner with us while you're here?
With you and your wife, you mean?
No, at the club. Us. With me. I don't run to a wife, I'm afraid. But do come. We're a reasonably civilised lot, and there's usually dancing on Saturdays. Only a gramophone, but lots of fun.
I'd love to. On Saturday, then.
Oh, splendid. I'll come by.
I haven't got a horse, you know.
We have a Damon at the residency. I'll see if I can wangle it. Pick you up about 8?
Yes.
We don't dress normally, except on dress nights. Obviously.
I'll be ready.
Jolly good.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Hup.
Wangle the Daimler.
I apologize if I was rude. You didn't put my father in jail after all.
Not in any sense. Jimapur was a native state, so your father was put in jail by his own people.
Well...
Whatever your father may have done, the resident would have had no authority to imprison an Indian. The Raja of Jimapur had his own justice.
Even so, you... the British...
Oh, I'm not saying we wouldn't have boxed his ears and sent him packing if he forgot which side his bread was buttered. But facts are facts. The Raja put your father in the chowkee. How long for, by the way?
6 months, actually.
There you are. In Bengal or the UP, he would have got a year at least. After the war, it may have been different. With independence round the corner, people were queuing up to go to prison. It was their ticket to the show. They'd do their bit of civil disobedience and hop into the paddy wagon, thoroughly pleased with themselves. Francis, that's my husband, would let them off with a small fine if he thought they were Johnny-come-latelys, and they'd be furious. That was when Francis had his district. We were right up near Nepal.
Yes, I noticed your...
Of course you did. In India we had pictures of coaching inns and fox hunting and chintz covers from Liberties and all sorts of knick-knackery from home. And now I've landed up in Shepperton, I've got elephants and prayer wheels cluttering up the window ledges, and the tea table is Nepalese brass. One could make a comment about human nature, but have a slice of Battenberg instead.
Oh, thank you.
I got it specially. An artistic sort of cake, I always think. What kind of paintings are they, these paintings that are not like your father's? Describe your latest. Like the cake?
Delicious, thank you.
No, are they like the cake?
Oh, no. They are all like each other, really. I can't describe them.
Indescribable, then. But modern, I suppose.
It's not my paintings I've come about.
No, of course. You recognised your father's work in the window of a bookshop. Still, he might have been more pleased to be in one art gallery than in 100 bookshops.
Perhaps not. I'm sure my father never had a single one of his paintings reproduced, and that is an extraordinary pleasure for an artist. I know. A painting under one's hand is everything, of course, unique, but replication, that is popularity. If we are allowed a little worldly pride, put us on thousands and thousands of book jackets, on calendars, biscuit tins.
Well, it's only 3,000 of the selected letters, but America still to come. Mr. Pike thinks Flora's letters will do very well in America, and he should know, being an American himself.
Mr. Pike?
The editor. He put the book together. A serious man, Mr. Pike, with a surprising gone-with-the-wind sort of accent.
Editor? Oh, yes, so he is. Edited with an introduction by Eldon Cooper Pike. What does it mean, edited, exactly? Are there more letters that are not in the book?
Naturally. Selected letters of Flora Crewe, that is what it means. And then there's the footnotes. Mr. Pike did those too.
Oh, yes, the footnotes.
Far too much of a good thing, the footnotes, in my opinion. To be constantly interrupted in a southern drawl by someone telling you things you already know or don't need to know at that moment. I hear Mr. Pike's voice every time I go to the bits at the bottom of the page. He teaches Flora Crewe at a university in Maryland. Makes her sound like a subject, doesn't it? Like biology, or in her case, botany. Flora is widely taught in America. I have been written to, even visited, and on one occasion telephoned by young women doing Flora Crewe.
Always young women?
Almost always, yes. She's become quite a heroine, which she always was to me. I was only 5 when Mother died, so it was Flora who... Oh dear, I'm going to need a hanky.
Oh, I say, I'm sorry if I...
Found it. It makes me so cross that she missed it all. The collected poems and now the letters, with her name all over the place and students and professors so interested and so sweet about her poetry. Nobody ever gave twopence about her while she was alive, except to get her knickers off. Never mind. How's your tea?
Sorry. Oh, very nice tea.
Have to go and repair myself. Yes, I like it well enough, but I can't get the tea here to taste as it should. I expect it's the water. A reservoir near Staines won't have the makings of a good cup of tea compared to the water we got in the hills. It came straight off the Himalayas. I won't be a minute.
Yes, I am in heat, like a corpse in a ditch, my skin stained and porous as a photograph under a magnifying lens that shows each hair a lily stem straggling out of a poisoned swamp. Heat has had its way with me. Yes, I know this ditch. I have been left for dead before. My lips gone slack, and the wild iris flickers in the drooling cavity. Insects crawl like tears from behind my eyes. Oh, fiddlesticks! May we stop for a moment? Oh, I'm sticking to myself.
Of course, forgive me.
You mustn't take responsibility for the climate too, Mr. Das.
No,
No, I'm sorry. I'm bad-tempered. Should we have some tea? I wouldn't mind something to eat, too. Nazrul! Am I saying his name right? There's a jar of patty, duck patty, in the refrigerator. Oh, Nazrul. Char and bread.
जी मैम
And
साहब,
in the fridge,
चाय
no...
अभी लाया.
Don't go. Listen to me.
would you allow me, please? Double roti और मक्खन भी ले आना और फ्रिज से duck patty.
साहब डबल रोटी और मक्खन तो ले आऊंगा, मगर पार्टी चोर ले गया.
A jar with a picture
ये
of
क्या कह रहा
a
तू?
duck.
डबल रोटी मक्खन और केक भी लाता हूँ.
What was all that?
He will bring tea and bread and butter and cake. The pate has been taken by robbers.
What?
Just so, I'm afraid.
But the fridge is padlocked. Mr. Kumaraswamy pointed it out to me particularly.
Where do you keep the key?
Nazrul keeps it, of course.
Ah, well, the whole thing is a great mystery.
But surely, isn't it against his religion?
Oh, certainly. I should say so. Not that I'm saying Nazrul stole the pate, but stealing would be against his religion, undoubtedly.
Oh, I don't mean the stealing, I mean the pork.
But I thought you said it was duck.
One must read the small print, Mr. Das. Duck pate in large letters, with pork in small letters. It's normal commercial practice.
Yes, I see.
We must hope he only got the duck part.
That is your true nature speaking, Miss Crow.
Though, of course, if they use one pig for every duck, Nazrul will have been lucky to get any duck at all.
The truth will never be known, only to God, who is merciful.
Yes. Which God do you mean?
Yours, if you wish, by all means.
Now, Mr. Das, there is such a thing as being too polite. Yours was here first.
Oh, but we Hindus can afford to be generous. We have gods to spare, one for every occasion. And Krishna said, whichever god a man worships, it is I who answer the prayer.
I wasn't sure whether Krishna was a god or a person.
Oh, he was most certainly a god. One of the 10 incarnations of Vishnu, and a favorite subject of the old Rajasthani painters. He had a great love affair, you see, with a married lady, Radha.
I think that's what confused me.
She was the most beautiful of the herdswomen. Radha fell passionately in love with Krishna, and she would often escape from her husband to meet him in secret.
I see. Come and sit down, Mr. Das. Take the cane chair. I'll keep mine for posture.
Thank you.
I've been looking at temples with Mr. Kumaraswamy.
Yes? Do you find them interesting?
I like some of the sculptures. The women have such serene faces. I mean, the goddesses.
Yes, they are beautiful.
Breasts like melons and baby-bearing hips. You must think me ill-favoured.
No, my wife was slightly built.
Oh. Oh, thank you, Nazrul. 2 kinds of cake.
मक्खन और डबल रोटी अभी लाया.
He will return with bread and butter.
How is your painting today?
Altered. Your face? I think your work was troublesome.
Yes.
Is it the rhyming that is difficult?
No.
The meter?
No, the emotion won't harmonize. I'm afraid I'm not much good at talking about it.
I'm sorry.
That's why I don't keep nipping round to your side of the easel. If I don't look, there's nothing to say. I think that's better.
Yes. It is better to wait. My painting has no rasa today.
Rasa?
Rasa is juice. It's taste, its essence. A painting must have its rasa, which is not in the painting exactly. Rasa is what you must feel when you see a painting or hear music. It is the emotion which the artist must arouse in you.
And poetry, does a poem have rasa?
Oh, yes. Without rasa, it is not a poem, only words. That is a famous dictum of Vishwanatha, a great teacher of poetry 600 years ago.
Rasa, yes. My poem has no rasa.
Or perhaps it has two rasas which are in conflict.
Oh?
There are 9 rasas, each one a different color. I should say mood. But each mood has its color. White for laughter and fun, red for anger, grey for sorrow. Each one has its own name and its own god too.
And some don't get on, is that it?
Yes, that is it. Some do and some don't. If you arouse emotions which are in opposition to each other, the rasas will not harmonize, you said.
Yes.
Your poem is about heat,
Yes.
but its rasa is perhaps anger?
Sex.
The rasa of erotic love is called Shringara. Its god is Vishnu, and its color is Shama, which is blue-black. Vishwanatha, in his book on poetics, tells us Shringara requires, naturally, a lover and his loved one, who may be a courtesan if she is sincerely enamored, and it is aroused by, for example, the moon, the scent of sandalwood, or being in an empty house. Shringara goes harmoniously with all other rasas and their complementary emotions, with the exception of cruelty, disgust, and sloth.
I see. Thank you. Empty house is very good. Mr. Das, you sounded just like somebody else. Yourself, I expect. I knew you could. The other one reminded me of Dr. Aziz in Foster's novel. Have you read it yet? I kept wanting to kick him.
Oh,
For not knowing his worth.
then perhaps you didn't finish it.
Yes, perhaps. Does he improve?
He alters.
What is your opinion of A Passage to India?
Was that the delicate question you considered to ask me?
Oh, Mr. Das.
There. That's better.
I was looking at your photographs. I hope you don't mind.
Oh, I took that one myself. In Venice. The summer before Flora went to India. I had a Kodak which let down in front in pleats. Took very good snaps. I wonder what happened to it. That was the day Diaghilev died, but we didn't know that till afterwards. We crossed to the Lido to have dinner with him at his hotel, and he was dead.
Is this one your husband?
Yes, that's Francis in Rawalpindi, before we were married. Have you been up there?
No, we have always lived in Rajasthan.
But you don't live there now.
No, I live here now.
You wrote from St. John's Wood.
Yes, London is my home now. I've spent half my life here. I married here.
An English girl?
Yes, Australian.
What an odd reply.
Yes, I suppose so. Mrs. Swan, it says in the book that your sister's portrait is reproduced by your permission. Does that mean you have it?
Yes.
Here in the house?
Oh, yes. Would you like to see it?
Oh, very much. I half expected to see it the moment I entered.
Pride of place, you thought. That's because you're a painter. Flora wouldn't have cared to be on show. The portrait has always fended for itself, rather.
I understand. Where do you keep it?
Nowhere particularly. We always took it around with us from house to house, and sometimes it ended up on top of a wardrobe. Oh, dear, that must seem rather rude.
It's all right.
Come along. It's in the bedroom, wrapped up. You're lucky. It only just came back from being photographed for the book. You can unwrap it for me. Oh, where's my stick? Has it fallen down?
Oh, here, let me.
Oh, thank you.
Do you need me to help you?
I hope not. Otherwise, what would I do when you've gone? But you may open the door. You can see why I got a bungalow. I wonder what we called bungalows before India, and verandas and so on. Must have made certain conversations quite awkward. I'm looking for a house with no upstairs and an outside-inside bit stuck on the front. There you are, rather well wrapped up. Will you need the kitchen scissors, do you think?
We'll see. What is in the boxes?
Flora's letters. Mr. Pike had them photographed too. Oh, try to save the brown paper. It looks a good size to be useful.
Yes, I will.
Oh, it's quite easy. That's it. Well, there she is.
Oh.
Yes, a bit much, isn't it?
Oh, it's so vibrant.
Vibrant? Yes. Oh, I say, you're not going to blub too, are you?
I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Borrow my hanky. It just goes to show you need an eye. And your father, after all, was like you, an Indian painter.
Jummapur, April the 5th. Darling Nell, I'm having my portrait painted by an artist I met here. And I'm not using the historical present. I mean he's at it as I write. So if you see a painting of me in a cornflower dress sitting writing on a veranda, you'll know I'm writing this. Some of the time, anyway. He thinks I'm writing a poem. Posing as a poet, you see, just as the enemy once said of me in his rotten rag.
The enemy was J.C. Squire, 1884 to 1958, poet, critic, literary editor of the New Statesman, and editor of the London Mercury. F.C. is evidently referring to an anonymous editorial in the London Mercury, April 1920, complaining about, quote, an outbreak of versifying flappers who should stop posing as poets and confine themselves to posing as railway stations. The magazine was sued by the poets Elizabeth Paddington, 1901 to 1988, and Lavinia Clapham, 1899 to 1929, both cases being settled out of court. F.C. poured a pint of beer over Squire's head in the Fitzroy Tavern in January 1921.
I am installed in a little house with a veranda and 3 good-sized rooms under a tin roof. The veranda is at the front, and you go into the main room, which has an electric ceiling fan and electric light and an oil lamp, which I prefer, even when the electricity hasn't failed. There's a nice big window at the back, looking out at a rather hopeless garden. And then there is a nice plain bedroom with a big bed and a desk and 1 wooden chair and a washstand. And through another door, a little bathroom with a Victorian bath and also a shower, which is, alas, contemporary makeshift. Over on the other side is a kitchen bit with a fridge. But my cook and bottle washer disregards the electric stove and makes his own arrangements on a little veranda of his own. And all this is under a big green tree with monkeys and parrots in the branches. And it's called a duck bungalow.
Dak bungalow, literally post house.
Although there is not a duck to be seen, only some scrawny chickens and a peahen. This is my first proper stop since I got off the boat and posted my Bombay letter. Yours overtook me and was waiting for me. Why didn't I think of posting myself overland? And thank you for it. But, darling, you mustn't expect me to be intelligence from abroad, as the Times used to say. You obviously know much more than I do about the Salt March.
Gandhi's march to the sea to protest the salt tax began in Ahmedabad on March 12th. He reached the sea on the day this letter was written.
Nobody has mentioned it to me. And you'd better explain to Josh that the earth-shaking sensation of Lord Beaverbrook's new Empire Party, etc.,
See Appendix G,
caused little stir in Jummapur. Sorry to disappoint. I arrived here on a huffing and puffing local with as many people riding on the roof as inside. And the entire committee of the Jummapur Theosophical Society was on the platform, bunch of flowers at the ready. Not quite a red carpet and brass band, but almost. And I thought there must be someone important on the train, and it turned out to be me.
Miss Crew! Welcome to Jummapur!
Thank you! How nice! Which was very agreeable. Are you Mr. Kumaraswamy?
That is me! Is this suitcase your only luggage?
And in no time at all, they put me in a buggy, and the president of the Theosophical sat beside me holding a yellow parasol, while the committee bicycled alongside, sometimes two to a bike. And here I came in triumph like Britannia in a carnival float representing empire, or, depending on how you look at it, the oppression of the Indian people, which is how you will look at it. And no doubt you're right. But I never saw anyone less oppressed than Mr. Kumaraswamy, whose entire 20 stone shakes with laughter all the time. The hot weather, they tell me, is about to start, but I can't imagine anything hotter than this. And it will be followed by the wet season, though I already feel as though I'm sitting in a puddle. Everything which requires movement must be accomplished between sunrise and breakfast, by which time inside is too hot to move and outside is too hot to think. My bedroom, apart from the ceiling fan, also has a punkah, which is like a line of washing worked by a punkah wallah, who sits outside and flaps the thing by a system of ropes and pulleys, or would if he were ever here, which he isn't. At sundown, gentle movement may be contemplated, and on Monday I was brought forth to deliver my lecture to a packed house, Mr. C's house, in fact, and a much more sensible house than mine, built round a square courtyard with a flat roof all round, so I had an audience in the gods, like gods in the audience. And though I say it myself, I did a good one, encouraged by the sight of several copies of Venus and Nymph in the front rows. And it all went terribly well, except for a nasty moment when questions were invited, and the very first one went...
Miss Crewe, it is said you're an intimate friend of Mr. H.G. Wells.
And I thought, God, how unfair, to have come all this way to be gossiped about, as if one was still in the Queen's Elm.
A public house in the Fulham area of Chelsea.
But it turned out nothing was meant by it, except...
Does Mr. Wells write his famous books with a typewriter or with pen and ink?
With pen and ink. A Waterman fountain pen. A present from his wife. Not that I had the least idea. Herbert did damn little writing when I was around, and made sure I did even less.
FC's liaison with Wells began no earlier than November 1929 and was therefore short, possibly the weekend of December 7th and 8th.
After which there was a reception with lemonade and whiskey and delicious snacks and conversation. Darling, it's so moving. They read the New Statesman and Time and Tide and the TLS as if they were the Bible in parts. Well, I don't mean the Bible, but you know what I mean. And they know who wrote what about whom. It's like children with their faces jammed to the railings of an unattainable park. They say to me...
What is your opinion of Gertrude Stein, Miss Crewe?
And I can't bring myself to say she's a poisonous old baggage who's travelling on a platform ticket.
FC's animosity towards Gertrude Stein should not lend credence to Hemingway's fanciful assertion in a letter to Marlene Dietrich that Stein threatened to scratch FC's, or the possessive pronoun is ambiguous, Alice Toklas's eyes out. If FC overpraised the chocolate cake, it would have been only out of politeness. See Bun Fight at 27 Rue de Fleurus by E.C. Pike, Maryland Monographs, UMP, 1983.
But anyway, that's when I met my artist.
Miss Crewe, may I congratulate you on your lecture? I found it most interesting.
Thank you.
I was surprised you did not mention Virginia Woolf.
I seldom do.
Have you met George Bernard Shaw?
Yes, I was nearly in one of his plays once.
But you are not an actress.
No, that was the trouble.
What do you think of Jumapur?
Well, I only arrived on Saturday, but...
Of course, how absurd of me.
No, not at all. I was going to say that my first impression...
Jumapur is not in any case to be compared with London. Do you live in Bloomsbury?
No, I live in Chelsea.
Chelsea? Of course, my favourite part of London.
Oh, you...
I hope to visit London one of these days. The Chelsea of Turner and the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. Rossetti lived in Cheyne Walk. Holman Hunt lived in Old Church Street. The Hireling Shepherd was painted in Old Church Street. What an inspiration it would be to me to visit Chelsea.
You are a painter?
Yes, Nirad Das.
How do you do?
I am top hole, thank you. May I give you a present?
Oh,
Please, do not judge it too harshly, Miss Crewe.
But it's wonderful. Thank you. And he gave me a pencil sketch of myself holding forth on the literary life. And the next thing I knew, I'd agreed to sit for him. He is charming and eager and looks like a rosewood Charlie Chaplin. Not the jumpy one in the films, the real one, who was at Iris's tennis party.
Iris Tree was the daughter of Sir Herbert Beerbohm Tree, who soon after the Crewe family arrived in London gave F.C. her first employment, fleetingly as a Cockney bystander in the original production of Pygmalion, and after objections from Mrs. Patrick Campbell, more permanently in The Office. It was this connection which brought F.C. into the orbit of Iris and her friend Nancy Cunard, and thence to the Sitwells, and arguably to the writing of poetry. F.C.'s first poems, written in 1914-15, now lost, were submitted to the Sitwell magazine Wheels, and although they were not accepted, how they could have been worse than Miss Tree's contributions to Wheels is difficult to imagine, F.C. remained to become a loyal foot soldier in the Sitwells' war against the enemy.
He's rather virile in a compact sort of way, with curly hair and hot brown eyes. He smiles a lot. He's got the teeth for it, white as his pyjamas. Not that he's smiling at the moment. When I glance up, I can see him frowning at me, and then at the canvas, as if one of us has misbehaved. By the way, I don't mean I've seen him in his pyjamas, darling. It's what he goes about in. At the Theosophical, there was everything from loincloths like Gandhi to collars and ties. Which reminds me, I had a visit from a clean young Englishman who has asked me to dinner tonight at the club. It was a bit of an afterthought, really. I think I made a gaffe by not announcing myself to the resident, the senior Brit, and the young man, he was on a horse, was sent to look me over. I think he ticked me off, but he was so nice it was hard to tell. I have a feeling I'm going to have to stop in a minute. My poem, the one I'm not writing, is about sitting still and being hot. It got defeated by its subject matter. Ask Dr. Guppy.
Dr. Alfred Guppy had been the Crewe family doctor since the move from Ashbourne to London in 1913. His notes on F.C.'s illness with references to pulmonary congestion are first dated 1926.
If this is what he meant by a warm climate.
Oh, fiddlesticks.
I'm sorry, is it my fault?
No, how can it be?
Is that so silly?
No, forgive me. Oh dear, Miss Crewe, yesterday I felt a communion, and today...
Oh, it is my fault. Yesterday I was writing a poem, and today I've been writing a letter. That's what it is.
A letter?
I'm not the same sitter. How thoughtless of me. How could I expect to be the same, writing to my sister, as for writing my poem?
Yes. Yes.
Are you angry?
I don't know. Can we stop now? I would like a cigarette. Would you care for a cigarette? They are gold flake.
No, but I'd like you to smoke.
Thank you. You were writing to your sister. She is in England, of course.
Yes, her name is Eleanor. She's much younger than me, only 23.
Then she cannot be so much younger.
Routine gallantry is disappointing in a man.
I'm sorry.
I'm 35, and I look well enough on it.
I guessed your age to be 32, if it is all right to say so.
Yes, it is all right to say so.
Where does your sister live?
That's almost the first thing you asked me. Would it mean anything to you?
Oh, I have the whole of London spread out in my imagination. Challenge me, you will see.
All right. She lives in Holborn.
Oh. Which part of London is that?
Well, it's, oh dear, between Gray's Inn Road and...
Holborn!
Yes, Holborn.
But of course I know Holborn. Charles Dickens lived in Doughty Street.
Yes, Eleanor lives in Doughty Street.
But, Miss Crewe, Oliver Twist was written in that very street.
Well, that's where Eleanor lives, near her work. She is the secretary to the editor of a weekly, The Flag.
The Flag?
You surely have never read that too.
No, but I have met the editor of The Flag.
Yes, of course you have. That's how I came to be here. Mr. Chamberlain gave me letters of introduction.
His lecture in Jumapur caused the Theosophical Society to be suspended for 1 year.
I'm sorry, but it's not for me to apologize for the Raj.
Oh, it was not the Raj, but the Raja. His Highness is our only capitalist. Do you agree with Mr. Chamberlain's theory of empire? I was not persuaded. Of course, I am not an economist.
That wouldn't deter Mr. Chamberlain.
It is not my impression that England's imperial adventure is simply to buy time against revolution at home.
I try to keep an open mind. Political theories are often, and perhaps entirely, a function of temperament. Eleanor and Mr. Chamberlain are well suited.
Your sister shares Mr. Chamberlain's opinions?
Naturally, for reasons I have implied.
Yes, being his secretary, you mean?
Being his mistress.
Oh.
You should have been a barrister, Mr. Das.
I am justly rebuked.
It was not a rebuke, an unintended slight, perhaps.
I am very sorry about your sister. It must be a great sadness for you.
I am very happy for her.
But she will never be married now, unless Mr. Chamberlain marries her.
He is already married, otherwise he might.
Oh, my goodness. How different things are. Here, you see, your sister would have been cast out for bringing shame on her father's house. Yes. Perhaps we are not so enlightened as you.
I'm sorry. I was only laughing because the difference is not the one you think. My father cast Eleanor out, but the shame for him was Mr. Chamberlain's politics. Poor father, a poet and a communist. He must have felt like King Lear. Well, you have had your cigarette. Are we to continue?
No, not today.
I'll go back to my poem.
I have an appointment I had forgotten.
Oh.
Actually, you mustn't feel obliged.
What have I done?
Done? What should you have done?
Stop it, please. Stop being Indian. Oh, I understand. Yes, I did look.
Yes.
I had a peep. Why not? You wanted me to.
Yes, why not? You looked at the painting and you decided to spend the time writing letters. Why not?
I'm sorry.
You still have said nothing about the painting.
I know.
I cannot continue today.
I understand. Will we try again tomorrow?
Tomorrow is Sunday.
The next day?
Perhaps I cannot continue at all.
Oh. And all because I said nothing. Are you at the mercy of every breeze that blows or fails to blow? Are you an artist at all?
Perhaps not. A mere sketcher, a hack painter who should be working in the bazaar.
Stop it!
Or in chalks on the ghats.
Stop! I'm ashamed of you. And don't cry.
I will if I wish. Excuse me, I cannot manage the easel on my bicycle. I will send for it.
You will not. And you will not take your box either. Give it to me. Put it back.
I do not want to continue, Miss Crewe. Please let go.
I won't let you give in.
Let go, damn you. Someone will see us.
Oh.
Oh, Miss Crewe. Oh, my God. Let me help you. I'm sorry. Please. Here. Sit down.
Really, I'm all right.
What happened?
I'm not allowed to wrestle with people, you see. It's a considerable loss. My lungs are bad, you see.
Let me move the cushion.
No, it's all right. I'm back now. Panic over. I'm here for my health, you see. Well, not here. I'll stay longer in the hills.
Yes, that will be better. You must go high.
Yes. In a day or two.
What is the matter with you?
Oh, sloshing about inside. Can't breathe underwater. I'm sorry if I frightened you.
You did frighten me. Would you allow me to remain a little while?
Oh, yes, I would like you to. I'm soaking.
You must change your clothes.
Yes, I'll go in now. I've got a shiver. Oh, pull me up. Thank you. I need to be rubbed down like a horse.
Perhaps some tea? I'll go to the kitchen and tell...
Yes, would you? I'll have a shower and get into my Wendy house. My mosquito net. I love my mosquito net. Oh, my big towel is on the kitchen veranda. Would you ask Nazrul to put it in the bedroom?
Nazrul? Nazrul? Oh. Oi, Nazrul! Nazrul?
Oh, come on. Damn you.
Miss Crew, I'm sorry. There's...
Yes, no water.
It's the electricity for the pump.
Yes. Oh, I have to lie down. There's water in the pitcher on the washstand.
Nazrul is not... Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dawes, but really, I feel too peculiar to mind at the moment.
Please, take the towel.
Thank you. No, please, get the water jug and my face cloth from the washstand.
Yes.
Is there any water?
Yes, it's full. Here.
Thank you. Hold the towel. Oh, heaven. Would you pour it over my back? Not too much at a time. Oh, thank you. I'm terribly sorry about this. And my head. Oh, that's good. I feel as weak as a kitten.
I'm afraid that's all.
Thank you.
Here, should I dry you?
Yes, my back, please. Oh, rub hard. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, stop a minute. There. Thank you. And my legs. Thank you.
There was no one in the kitchen and no water for the tea.
Oh, never mind. I'll get into bed now.
Do you have soda water?
I think so.
I will fetch it.
Yes, please, in the fridge.
Yes. Oh, but is it locked?
Oh, perhaps. Oh, now I'm hot again. And no electricity for the fan. And the sheet's too hot. It's too late for modesty. Anyway, I'm your model.
I will fetch soda water.
That was the thing I was going to ask you.
When?
The delicate question. Whether you would prefer to paint me nude.
Oh?
I preferred it. I had more, what you call it?
Rasa.
Yes. Rasa.
I remember the frock. It wasn't quite such a royal blue. Her cornflower dress, she called it.
And her, is it a good likeness?
Well, it's certainly Flora. She always sat upright and square to the table. She hated slouches. She would have made a good schoolmistress, except for the feet. She always slipped her shoes off to work and placed them neatly to one side like that. Yes, it's a very faithful portrait.
But unfinished.
Is it? Why do you say that?
It wasn't clear from the book, the way they cropped the painting. See, here, my father's only indicated the tree and the monkey, especially the doorway beyond.
Oh, but it's a portrait of her.
Yes, but he wasn't satisfied with her. He would have gone back to complete the background only when he considered the figure finished. Believe me, my father abandoned this portrait. I wondered why he hadn't signed it. Now I know. Thank you for showing it to me.
Mr. Das, you said you had come to show me something. Evidence, you said.
Yes, I did. Come into the hall, Mrs. Swan. Can you guess what it is?
A photograph of your father, looking like Charlie Chaplin.
No, better evidence than that. You may be shocked.
Oh dear, then you'd better prepare me.
It's a painting, of course, wrapped up in this paper for 60 years. We need a flat surface in the light.
The table in the bay?
Yes, please, come to the window. May I use the elephants to hold it flat?
Very suitable.
And there you are, then.
Oh, good heavens.
A second portrait of Flora Crewe.
How like Flora.
More than a good likeness, Mrs. Swan.
No. I mean, how like Flora.
Nazrul has returned, most fortunately. I was able to unlock the refrigerator. I have the soda water.
Thank you. You must have some too.
I will put it on the table.
Yes. No, the table by me. It's quite safe. I've covered myself.
May I move this book?
Thank you. Do you know it? I found it here.
Up the country? No, it looks old.
100 years before my time. But it's just my book.
Oh. Let me pour the water for you.
Thank you.
Nazrul was delayed at the shops by a riot, he says. The police charged the mob with lathis. He could have easily been killed, but by heroism and inspired by his loyalty to the Memsahib, he managed to return only an hour late, with all the food you gave him money for, except 2 chickens which were torn from his grasp.
Oh, dear. You thanked him, I hope.
I struck him, of course. You should fine him for the chickens.
Oh, that's nice. It's still cold. Perhaps there really was a riot.
Oh, yes, very probably. I have sent Nazrul to fetch the dhobi. You must have fresh linen for the bed. Nazrul will bring water, but you must not drink it.
Thank you.
I'm sure the electricity will return soon and the fan will be working.
What's that? Oh, the punkah.
I have found a boy to be Pankawala.
Yes, it makes a draft. Thank you. A little boy.
Oh, don't worry about him. I've told him the Memsahib is sick.
The Memsahib? Oh, dear.
Yes, you are Memsahib. Are you all right now, Miss Crewe?
Oh, yes. I'm only shamming now.
May I return later to make certain?
Are you leaving now? Well, yes, I've made you late.
No, not at all. There is no one waiting for me. But the servants will return, and we Indians are frightful gossips, you see.
Oh.
It is for yourself, not me.
I don't believe you, Mr. Das, not entirely.
To tell you the truth, this is the first time I have been alone in a room with an Englishwoman.
Oh, well, you certainly started at the deep end.
We need not refer to it again. It was an accident.
I didn't think you blushed.
Oh, yes. I assure you our physiology is exactly the same as yours.
Well said, but I didn't mean that. I was being personal. I didn't expect an artist to blush.
Then perhaps I am not an artist, as you said.
I did not. All I did was hold my tongue, and you wanted to cut and run. What would you have done in the ordinary rough and tumble of literary life in London, on which, as you know, I'm an expert? I give lectures on it. I expect you would have hanged yourself by now. When Nymph in Our Orisons came out, one of the reviewers called it Nymph in Her Mania, and made some play with free verse and free love, as if my poems, which I found so hard to write, were a kind of dalliance. No more than that. I cried a bit too. I wanted to cut and run. Oh, the dreadful authority of print. It's bogus. If free verse and free love had anything in common, it's a distrust of promiscuity. Quite apart from it, not applying to me.
Of course not.
Bogus and ignorant, my poems are not free verse.
Oh.
I met my critic somewhere a few months later and poured his drink over his head and went home and wrote a poem. So that was all right. But he'd taken weeks away from me, and I mind that now.
Oh. You're not dying, are you?
I expect so. But I intend to take years and years about it. You'll be dead too one day, so let it be a lesson to you. Ignore everything, including silence. I was silent about your painting, if you want to know, because I thought you would be an Indian artist.
An Indian artist?
Yes. You are an Indian artist, aren't you? Stick up for yourself. Why do you like everything English?
I do not like everything
English.
English.
Yes, you do. You're enthralled. Chelsea, Bloomsbury, Oliver Twist, gold flake cigarettes, even painting in oils. That's not Indian. You're trying to paint me from my point of view instead of yours. What you think is my point of view. You deserve the bloody empire.
May I sit down, please?
Yes, do. Flora is herself again.
I will move the chair near the door.
You can move the chair onto the veranda if you like, so
I
the
would like to
servants
smoke.
won't...
That is what I meant.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. In that case, can you see me through the net from over there?
Barely.
Is that a yes or a no? Oof. That's better. That's what I love about my little house. You can see out, but you can't see in.
But you are looking out at such a house. The bloody empire finished off Indian painting. Excuse me.
No, I prefer your bark.
Perhaps your sister is right, and Mr. Chamberlain. Perhaps we have been robbed. Yes, when the books are balanced, the women here wear saris made in Lancashire. The cotton is Indian, but we cannot compete in the weaving. Mr. Chamberlain explained it all to us in simple Marxist language. Actually, he caused some offence.
Yes, you mean the Raja?
No. He didn't realize we had Marxists of our own, many of them in the Jumapur Theosophical Society. For some, Marx is the god whose wisdom the society honours in its title.
Mr. Kumaraswamy?
No, not Mr. Kumaraswamy. His criticism is that you haven't exploited India enough. Where are the cotton mills, the steel mills? No investment, no planning. The empire has failed us. That is Mr. Kumaraswamy. Well, the empire will one day be gone like the Mughal Empire before it, and only their monuments remain. The visions of Shah Jahan, of Sir Edwin Lutyens.
Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair.
Oh, yes! Finally like the empire of Ozymandias, entirely forgotten except in a poem by an English poet. You see how privileged we are, Miss Crewe. Only in art can empires cheat oblivion, because only the artist can say, "Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair."
Well, it helps if he happens to be Shelley.
There are Mughal paintings in the museum in London.
Yes, Rajput miniatures in the Victoria and Albert.
You have seen them?
Yes.
And you like them, of course.
Yes, very much.
18th and early 19th century, or earlier. Nothing much good later.
I didn't mean I expected you to paint like that. I just didn't like you thinking English was better because it was English, if that is what you were thinking. Did you consider my question?
What question?
Can't you paint me without thinking of Rossetti or Millet, especially without thinking of Holman Hunt? Would your nudes be pre-Raphaelite too?
The pre-Raphaelites did not paint nudes. Their models were clothed.
Oh, yes, weren't they, though? The Brotherhood painted life as if it were a costume drama put on by Beerbohm Tree. I knew him, you know. He gave me my first job. And my second. All right, Alma Tadema, then. I bet you like Alma Tadema.
Yes, very much. When you stood with the pitcher of water, you were an Alma Tadema.
Well, I don't want to be painted like that either. That's C.B. Cochrane, if only he dared.
I don't understand why you are angry with me.
You were painting me as a gift to please me.
Yes, it was a gift for you.
If you don't start learning to take, you'll never be shot of us. Whom? Nothing else counts. Mr. Chamberlain is bosh. Mr. Kumaraswamy is bosh. It's your country and we've got it. Everything else is bosh. When I was Modi's model, I might as well have been a table. Lie down, thrust your hips. When he was satisfied, he got rid of me. There was no question whom. You never change his colour on the map. But please light your gold flake.
I like the pre-Raphaelites because they tell stories. That is my tradition too. I am Rajasthani. Our art is narrative art, stories from the legends and romances. The English painters had the Bible and Shakespeare, King Arthur. We had the Bhagavat Purana, the Rasik Priya, which was written exactly when Shakespeare had his first play. And long before Chaucer, we had the Chora Panchasika from Kashmir, which is poems of love written by the poet of the court on his way to his execution for falling in love with the king's daughter. And the king liked the poem so very much, he pardoned the poet and allowed the lovers to marry.
Oh.
But the favourite book of the Rajput painters was the Gita Govinda, which tells the story of Krishna and Radha, the most beautiful of the herdswomen.
The fan has started. The electricity's on.
You will be a little cooler now.
Yes. I might have a sleep.
That would be good.
Mr. Durrance has invited me to dinner at the club.
Will you be well enough?
I'm well now.
That is good. Goodbye then.
Were Krishna and Radha punished in the story?
What for?
I should have come here years ago. The punka boy can stop now. Will you give him a rupee? I'll return it tomorrow.
I will give him an anna. A rupee would upset the market.
I was in England when my father died. It was Christmas Day, 1967. My first Christmas in London, in a house of student bedsits in Ladbroke Grove. An unhappy day.
Yes, of course.
I mean, it was already unhappy. The house was cold and empty. All the other students had gone home to their families, naturally. I was the only one left. No one had invited me.
Well, having a Hindu for Christmas can be tricky. Francis would invite his assistant for Christmas lunch, and I always felt I should be apologising for rubbing something in which left him out, if you follow me. It quite spoiled the business of the paper hats, too. There's nothing like having an Indian at table for making one feel like a complete ass, handing round the vegetables and a pink paper fez. That was after Isation, of course.
I heard the telephone.
Did you? Well, it stopped now. The mistletoe was another problem.
No, there was a coin box in the hall. I could hear it ringing all day. It would stop and then start again. I ignored it. The phone was never for me. But finally I went up and answered it, and it was my uncle calling from Jummapur to say my father was dead.
Oh, how sad. Did you go home?
Yes, there was great sadness in our house.
Of course.
I'm ashamed of it, but I found the rituals of death and grief distasteful. I wanted to return to England, and I did, as soon as permitted. There were legal matters which I was grateful to leave to my father's elder brother. So I was in England again when I learned that I had a legacy from my father. He had left me his tin trunk, which had always stood at the foot of his bed.
Oh, yes.
It arrived finally, and it was locked. There'd been no mention of a key, so I broke the hasp. There was nothing of value in the trunk that I could see.
You were disappointed?
Well, yes. It was mainly letters and old bills. My report cards from school and so on. But at the bottom of everything was a painting rolled up in paper. An extraordinary painting. A nude. A portrait of a woman. Even more amazing, a European woman, apparently painted many years before. I couldn't imagine who she was or what it meant.
Did you ask anyone? Your uncle?
No. It was clear that this was something my father was sharing with me alone. A secret he was passing on. So I rolled the picture up again and put it away. I never hung it, of course. I never showed it to anyone until years later I showed it to my wife.
Until now?
Yes. The book in the shop window. It was like seeing a ghost. Not her ghost, his. It was my father's hand. His work. I'd grown up watching him work, his portrait work in oils, local bigwigs, daughters of well-to-do businessmen. I'd seen 100 original Narad Dases, and here was his work, not once, but repeated 20 times over. It filled the window of the bookshop, a special display, the selected letters of Flora Crewe. And in the next instant, I saw it was the same woman.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's Flora. It's as particular as an English miniature. A watercolour, isn't it?
Watercolour and gouache on paper.
It's fascinating. It looks Indian, but he hasn't made her Indian.
Well, she was not Indian.
Yes, I know. I'm not gaga. I'm only old. I mean, he hasn't painted her flat. But everything else looks Indian, like enamel. The moon and stars done with a pastry cutter, and the birds singing in the border. Or is that the ceiling of the room, that line?
I'm not sure.
And the foliage in bloom, so bright. Is it day or night? I know what's odd. The different parts are on different scales. The tree is far too small, or it's the right size too close. You can't tell if the painter is in the house or outside looking in.
She is in a house, within a house. Look.
This edge must be the floor. Flora wrote about animals scratching about under the bungalow. There's a snake, look. Oh, but there couldn't have been gazelles under the house, could there? Perhaps it's a border after all. Or a touch of fancy.
Symbolism, yes.
I like the book on the pillow. That's Flora.
And a picture on the table next to her, and bread on the plate. Do you see the lettering on the book?
Too small. I could find a magnifying glass.
It says Eden.
Eden? Oh.
A book of verses underneath the bough, a jug of wine, a loaf of bread, and thou beside me singing in the wilderness.
That's not Indian.
No. The Mughals brought miniature painting from Persia when they made their Indian empire. But Muslim and Hindu art are different. The Muslim artists were realists. To a Hindu, every object has an inner meaning. Everything is to be interpreted in a language of symbols.
Which you understand, Mr. Das.
Well, not in detail. I'd have to look it up.
Look it up? Oh, I'm sorry.
But this flowering vine that winds itself around the dark trunk of the tree.
Oh.
The vine is shedding its leaves and petals. Look where they're falling to the ground. I think my father knew your sister was dying.
It upsets me to see her nakedness.
Yes. It's unguarded. She's not posing, but resting.
No, I didn't mean that. I don't make presumptions.
Oh, but...
I was not there to nurse her, bathe her. I never saw her body at the end.
Yes. Let me put it away now.
No, leave it, please. I want to look at it more. Yes. Such a pretty painting.
It was done with great love.
He was certainly taken with her, whether she posed for him or whether it's a work of the imagination.
Oh, but the symbolism clearly...
Codswallop. Your house within a house, as anyone can see, is a mosquito net. I had one which was gathered at the top in exactly that way, and a drink and a sandwich don't add up to the rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam by a long chalk. Eden, indeed. Why would a Hindu call it Eden?
Her paradise, not his.
Don't be a fool. The book is a volume of Indian travels. It was Flora's bedside reading. She mentions it in one of her letters. You should read the footnotes.
Jummapur, Sunday, April the 6th. Darling Nell, I posted a letter only hours ago. At least I put it in the box at the club last night, and no doubt it's still there. But I'll make this the next page of my journal, and probably post it when I leave Jummapur. We had an excitement in town yesterday morning, a riot, and half a street of shops burned to the ground, with the police out in force, the Raja's police. The Raja of Jummapur is Hindu, otherwise it would more likely be Jummabad, not poor. But the Muslims got the best of it, according to my cook, who was in the heat of the battle. The British here shake their heads and ask where will it all end when we've gone, because going we are. That's official, tell Josh. I got it from the resident, whose view is that A, it is our moral duty to remain, and B, we will shirk it. So now it's Sunday after breakfast, and I've been horse riding. In a long skirt like the Viceroy's daughters 20 years ago, the first women to ride astride in India. Do you remember Llandudno? No, surely you can't. I think that was the last time I was ever on anything resembling a horse.
The Crewe family spent August at the seaside resort in North Wales from 1904 until 1911, the year of Mrs. Crewe's elopement. F.C.'s allusion is evidently to donkey rides on the sands, and her comment is of some interest, since, if she is right, a recently published photograph described as showing F.C. and Maynard Keynes on horseback at Garsington in 1924, Ottilie Morell and Her Circle in Hell by Toshiro Kurosaki, 1988, misidentifies her, if not him.
If I start coming over a bit dated, it's because in my bungalow, which is not duck, but dak, i.e. for travellers, as Josh has probably told you by now, I have discovered among a box of dilapidated railway novels a book of letters written from India 100 years ago by an English spinster, hand on my heart, to her sister Eleanor in London. And this is now my only reading.
The spinster was Emily Eden, and the book was Up the Country, 1866. The Honourable Miss Eden was accompanying her brother, the Governor-General Lord Auckland, on an official progress up country. The tour, supported by a caravan of 10,000 people, including Auckland's French chef and almost as many animals, lasted 30 months, from October 1837, and Emily wrote hundreds of letters to sisters and friends at home, happily unaware that the expedition's diplomatic and strategic accomplishment was to set the stage for the greatest military disaster ever to befall the British under arms, the destruction of the army in Afghanistan.
I shall steal the book when I leave here in a day or two and pick up Emily's trail in Delhi and Simla and up into the Punjab, where the literary societies are holding their breath. Speaking of which, I'm doing pretty well with mine, well enough to go dancing last night. My suitor, I suppose I must call him that, though I swear I did nothing to encourage him. Came to fetch me in an enormous open Daimler, which drew a crowd. You wangled it!
Of course. In you get.
Can I drive?
Next time. Is that a bargain?
It's a bargain.
Done. By the way, I hope you'll call me David. First names are generally the drill with us.
David.
Rasta Koro! Rasta say Hutto! Rasta Koro!
And off we went, pushing through the mob of curiosity seekers, scattering children and dogs and chickens right and left. Rather like leaving Bow Street in a police van. My God, how strange. That was 10 years ago, almost to the day.
In fact, 9. See The Woman Who Wrote What She Knew by E.C. Pike, Maryland Monographs, UMP, 1981.
I fully expected the club to be like a commercial hotel in the hotter part of Guildford, but not at all. It's huge and white and pillared. Just like the house of your first memory, perhaps. Poor Mamma's Nearly house, which was ours for 6 months and then no more. I've never been back to Maybrook. Perhaps we should make a pilgrimage one day.
The Crewe family met Sir George Dew Lovett of Maybrook Hall, Lancashire, on the promenade at Llandudno in August 1911. Catherine Crewe never returned to the house at Ashbourne. She eloped with Dew Lovett, a director of the White Star shipping line, and took her daughters, who were aged 4 and 16, to live at Maybrook. Percival Crewe proved to be unacrimonious, and divorce proceedings were underway when the girls returned to Ashbourne to stay with their father for the Easter holidays of 1912, while their mother joined Dew Lovett at Southampton. The Titanic sailed on April 10th, and F.C. never saw her mother or Maybrook again.
And everyone at the club was very friendly, going out of their way to explain that although they didn't go in much for poetry, they had nothing against it, so that was all right. And dinner was soup, boiled fish, lamb cutlets, sherry trifle, and sardines on toast. 8 of us at the residence table.
Are you writing a poem about India, Flora?
Trying to.
Kipling, there's a pet. And the dawn comes up like thunder on the road to Mandalay.
I thought that was a song.
The resident was a different matter.
The only poet I know is Alfred Houseman. I expect you've come across him.
Of course.
How is he nowadays?
Oh, come across him.
He hauled me through Ars Anatolia when I was up at Trinity.
The art of love.
When it comes to love, he said you're either an Ovid man or a Virgil man. Omnia vincit amor. That's Virgil. Love wins every time, and we give way to love. Et nos cedamus amori. Houseman was an Ovid man. Et mihi cedet amor. Love gives way to me.
I'm a Virgil man.
Are you? Well, you meet more people that way.
And his sources of information were impressive.
I believe you're here on doctor's orders.
Why, yes. How...
If there's anything you need or want, you tell David. Right, David?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. He's already promised me a go in the Daimler.
If you like cars, the Raja has got about 86 of them. Rolls-is, the lot. With about 10 miles on the clock. Collects them like stamps. Well, don't let me stop you enjoying yourselves.
Would you like to dance, Flora?
And it turned out to be an easy evening to get through, which only goes to show when in Rome, etc. And I wish I'd remembered that when I was in Rome.
F.C. was in Rome twice, in 1920 and 1926, en route to Capri in each case. It is unclear what she means here.
Interrupted.
Do you mean you've come to interfere your health?
Is that amusing?
Well, it is, rather. Have you seen the English cemetery?
No.
I must take you there.
Oh.
People here drop like flies. Cholera, typhoid, malaria. Men, women and children, here one day, gone the next. Are you sure the doctor said India? Perhaps he said Switzerland and you weren't paying attention.
He didn't say India. He said a sea voyage and somewhere warm. But I wanted to come to India.
Oh, then good for you. Live dangerously, why not?
Oh, you're too energetic for me. Slow down.
Well, I suppose this is somewhere warm. In a month, you can't imagine it. But you'll be gone up to the hills, so you'll be all right.
Yes. Let's sit down.
A slow one coming up.
No, I'm out of puff.
Yes, of course. You're not really bad, are you, Flora?
No, but I'd like to sit down. Do you think there might be more air outside?
On the veranda. Any air that's going. Should we take a peg with us? Koi hi! Thank you. 2 borough pegs.
Yes, sir.
Lots of soda with mine, please.
Yes, ma'am, sir.
There we are. Long sleever. Good for putting feet up.
Yes, long sleeve. Thank you. Oh. How pretty, the lanterns.
I hope you don't mind the moths.
Oh, no, I like moths.
If they make a whining noise, kill them.
It's a nice club.
Yes, it's decent enough. There are not so many British here, so we tend to mix more.
With the Indians?
No, in India proper. I mean, our India, there'd be 2 or 3 clubs. The box swallows would have their own, and the government people would stick together. You know how it is. And the army...
Mr. Das called you captain.
Yes, I'm army. Seconded, of course. There are 2 of us, juniors. Political agents, we call ourselves when we're on tour around the states. Jumapur is not one of your 21-gun salute states, you see. My chief is in charge of half a dozen native states.
In charge?
Oh, yes.
Is he army? No, how silly.
He's ICS. The Heaven-born. A Brahmin.
Not seriously.
Yes, seriously. Oh, no, they're not a Brahmin, seriously. But it might come to that with Ization. Indianization. It's all over, you know. We have Indian officers in the regiment now. My fellow junior here is Indian too. Terribly nice chap. He's ICS, passed the exam. Did his year at Cambridge, learnt polo and knives and forks, and here he is, a Pukka Saab in the Indian Civil Service.
But he's not here.
At the club? No, he can't come into the club.
Saab?
Here we are. Thank you. Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
Your health, Flora. I drink to your health for which you came. I wish you were staying longer. Only for my sake. Flora...
Yes, but I'm not, so that's that. Don't look hangdog. You might like me less and less as you got to know me.
Will you come riding in the morning?
Seriously?
Yes, seriously. Will you?
In the Daimler?
No. Say you will. We'll have to go inside in a minute if no one comes out.
Why?
There's nothing to do here except gossip, you see. Everyone is agog about you. One of the wives claims... Were you in the papers at home? Some scandal about one of your books, something like that?
Well, I can see why you're nervous being trapped out here with me. Let's go in.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Flora. Pax? Please?
All right. Pax.
Sealed with a kiss.
No more. I mean it. David, think of your career.
Are you really a scandalous woman?
I was for a while. I was up in court, you know, Bow Street.
Oh, not really?
Almost, really. I was a witness. The publisher was in the dock. But it was my poems. Venus in Her Season, my first book.
Oh, I say.
The case was dismissed on a technicality. And the policemen were awfully sweet. They got me away through the crowd in a van. It was all most enjoyable, actually, and it gave me an entree to several writers I admired, most of whom it turned out were hoping it worked the other way round. My sister was asked to leave school, but that was mostly my own fault. The magistrate asked why all the poems seemed to be about sex, and I said, write what you know, just showing off. I was practically a virgin, but it got me so thoroughly into the newspapers. My name rings a bell, even with a wife of a bloody jute planter or something in the middle of Rajputana. Damn. No, let's go inside.
Sit down. That's an order. How's your whiskey?
Excellent. All the better for being forbidden. My God, where did that moon come from?
Better. I love this country, don't you?
Yes, I think I do. What's going to happen to it? The riot in town this morning, does that happen often?
Well, not here, no. The jails are filling up in British India.
Well then.
It wasn't against us. It was Hindu and Muslim. Gandhi's salt march reached the sea today. Did you hear? Our Congress Hindus closed their shops in sympathy, and the Muslims wouldn't join in. That's all it was about. The Indian National Congress is all very well, but to the Muslims, Congress means Gandhi, a Hindu party in all but name.
Will Gandhi be arrested?
Oh, no. The salt tax is a lot of nonsense, actually.
Yes, it does seem hard.
No, not that sort of nonsense. Works out about 4 annas a year. Most Indians didn't even know there was a salt tax.
Well, they do now.
Yes, they do now. Would you like one more turn around the floor before they play the king?
Oh, no, I'm tiring. Will you finish my whiskey? I'd like to go back to my little house.
Oh, yes, of course. Would you mind saying good night to my chief? Would go down well.
I'd like to. The Brahmin?
Yes. The highest caste of Hindu, you see. And the ICS are the highest caste of Anglo-India. There's about 1,200 ICS, and they run the continent. That's 3 for every million Indians.
Why do the Indians let them?
Why not? They're better at it.
Are they?
Well, ask them.
Who?
The natives. Ask them. We've pulled this country together. It's taken 200 years with a hiccup or two, but the place now works.
That's what you love, then? What you created?
Oh, no. It's India I love. I'll show you. Reveille at 6. Be ready. Did he frighten you? He's big but harmless.
Oh, hi.
We surprised him in his bath.
He's immense. Thank you.
Me?
He was my surprise, really.
Oh, yes. Just for you.
I've never been given a buffalo before.
Look. Sand grouse. Nice left and right.
Don't shoot them. They're mine. Where life began, at the lake's edge, water and mud convulsed, reared itself and became shaped into buffalo. The beast stood dismayed, smeared with birth, streaming from his muzzle like an infant, celebrated with lily flowers about his horns. So he walked away to meet his death, among peacocks, parrots, antelopes. We watched him go, taller than he, mounted astride. Superior beasts.
Time to trot. Sun's up.
Whoops! David, I'll have to tell you. Stop! It's my first time on a horse, you see.
Yes, I could tell.
Could you? Even walking? I felt so proud when we were walking.
No good, I'm afraid.
Oh, damn you. I'm getting off.
No, just sit. He's a chair. Breathe in. India smells wonderful, doesn't it?
Out here it does.
Oh, you should smell chapatis cooking on a camel dung fire out in the Thar desert. Perfume.
What were you doing out there?
Cooking chapatis on a camel dung fire. I'll tell you where it all went wrong with us in India. It was the Suez Canal. They let the women in.
Oh.
Absolutely. And you had to sail round the Cape. This was a man's country, and we mucked in with the natives. The Mem Sahibs put a stop to that. The Mem Sahib won't muck in. Won't even be alone in a room with an Indian.
Oh?
Don't point your toes out. May I ask you a personal question?
No.
All right.
I wanted to ask you something. How did the resident know I came to India for my health?
It's his business to know. Shoulders back, reins too
But
slack.
I didn't tell anybody.
Obviously you did.
Only Mr. Das.
Oh, well, say no more. Jolly friendly of you, of course. Sharing a confidence, lemonade, all that. But they can't help themselves bragging about it, telling all they know.
Rubbish!
Well, I stand corrected.
I'm sorry. I don't believe you, though.
Righto.
I'm sorry. Pax.
Flora,
No.
would you marry me?
No.
Would you think about it?
No. Thank you.
Love at first sight, you see. Forgive me.
Oh, David.
Knees together!
Afraid so. Next day. Oh dear, guess what? You won't approve. Quite right. So I think it's time to go. Love 'em and leave 'em.
What, if anything, came of this is not known. The man was most probably the junior political agent at the residency, Captain David Arthur Durrance, who took F.C. dancing and horse riding. He was killed in Malaya in 1942 during the Japanese advance on Singapore.
I feel tons better, though. The juices are starting to flow again, as you can see from the enclosed.
Buffalo and Pearl, included in Indian Ink 1932.
I'll keep sending you fair copies of anything I finish, in case I get carried away by monsoons or tigers. And if I do, look after the comma after astride, please. It's just the sort of thing they leave out. Printers have taken more years off my life than pulmonary congestion, I can tell you. Send Buffalo to Blackwood's and Pearl to Transition. And if you get £1 for them, put it in the Sasha Fund.
The reference is obscure.
I'm writing this at my table on the veranda, looking longingly to the hills I can't see. The dark menagerie is subdued by the heat, except for a pie dog barking under the house. And I'd better start with what interrupted me yesterday after my early morning ride, which was a Rolls Royce, circa 1912, but brand new, as it were, driven by a Sikh in a turban, called Singh.
A tautology, all Sikhs are named Singh. However, not all people named Singh are Sikhs.
Oh, shut up! Shoo! Shoo! Jow! He was a chauffeur with a note from His Highness the Rajah of Jampur, inquiring after my health and assuring me that the spiritual beauty of Jampur had been increased 1,000-fold by my presence, and asking my indulgence towards his undistinguished collection of motor cars, which nevertheless might be worthy of my interest during an idle hour, since he understood I was a connoisseur of the automobile. Well, what is a poor girl to do? Hop into the back of the Rolls, that's what. Thank you. The Rajah's palace didn't exactly have a garage, more of a cavalry barracks with a motor show thrown in, and he himself was there to greet me.
Miss Crewe, how delightful that you were able to come.
Oh, how sweet of you to ask me, Your Highness. Oh, I'm sorry.
Please.
And I made a mess of that, sticking my hand out at his bowed head, bowing at his hand. But he was very sporting about it, and there were all these cars gleaming in the courtyard, with a dozen grooms standing by. One couldn't think of them as mechanics. What a wonderful sight!
Let me show you one or two.
Oh, thank you. Oh, a Hispano Switzer. He's a large, soft-looking man with beautiful eyes like a seal, and wearing a long buttoned-up brocade coat over white leggings. No jewellery except a yellow diamond ring, not much bigger than my engagement ring from Gus. Only real, I suppose.
Augustus de Boucheron enjoyed brief celebrity as a millionaire philanthropist and patron of the arts. F.C. met him and received his proposal of marriage on October 11th, 1918, at a party given for the Russian ballet by the Sitwells at Swan Walk. It was at the same party that Maynard Keynes met the ballerina, Lopakova. F.C. had returned from France only hours earlier and was wearing her auxiliary nurse's uniform. Her fortunes were at their lowest ebb, for she was supporting her sister, still at school, and also her father, who, since being invalided out of the army, had given up the bar and enjoyed few periods of lucidity. The engagement to de Boucheron was announced on January 1st, 1919, and ended on August 1st in a furniture store. See note on page 334.
And he knew very little about cars, he just liked the look of them, which was endearing. And I know how badly this must be going down in Doughty Street, but we soon got on to politics. He was at school with Winston Churchill.
But I'm afraid I can't remember him at all. Look at this one. I couldn't resist the headlamps. So enormous, like the eggs of a mythical bird.
Yes, a brancusi.
Is it? I don't know their names. All the same, I read Churchill's speeches with great interest. He's right in what he says, don't you agree, Miss Crewe? The loss of India would reduce Britain to a minor power.
Well, that may be, but one must consider India's interests, too.
But what about Jumapor's interests?
Well, yes, of course, but aren't they the same thing?
No. Independence would be the beginning of the end for the native states. Though in a sense you're right. Independence may be the beginning of the end for Indian nationalism, too. Only yesterday you may have heard about the hullabaloo in town.
Yes.
The princes stood firm with the British during the first uprising in my grandfather's day. In 57, the danger was from fundamentalists.
The mutiny.
Today it is the progressives. Marxism, civil disobedience. But I told the Viceroy, you have to fight them the same way. You won't win by playing cricket. My father drove this one. It's a Bentley.
Yes.
He won it at Monte Carlo. He spent much of his time in the south of France for his health. But you have come to India for your health.
Well, yes, Your Highness. Everybody seems to know everything about me.
Should we have some refreshment?
Oh, thank you.
After you?
You mean in the car?
Do you like this one?
Yes, of course. It's a Packard.
It's quite a step to my apartments. Why walk in the sun when we have so many motor cars?
Oh, I see. Thank you.
I keep them all ready. Would you care to drive?
Yes, I'd love to. I'll slip over.
Jolly good. We'll have some tiffin. When you leave, Jumapur?
And we drove all of 200 yards past saluting sentries into the palace proper, which had a fountain inside. And we walked through a series of little gardens into his reception room where we had sherbet. Well, you can imagine the rest, can't you? Me sat on silk cushions, being peeped at by giggling ladies of the harem through the lattice-work of carved marble. Well, no such thing. We had tea and cold cuts and little iced cakes, and the furniture was from Heels, 3-piece suite and all. And I know it was Heels because the sofa was absolutely the one I broke my engagement on when I took Gus to the French pictures. My God, I thought that's the Modigliani sofa.
The exhibition of modern French art at Heel & Sons near Tottenham Court Road enlivened the hot early August days of 1919. Modigliani was one of several newer artists shown, with the better-known Matisse, Picasso, and Derain, and it was his nudes, including the peasant girl now in the Tate Gallery, which provoked such comments in the press as that the show was glorying in prostitution. F.C. had met Modigliani in Paris at his first show on December 3, 1917. The date is fixed by the fact that the show was closed by the police on the opening day, and she sat, or rather reclined, for the artist soon afterwards. Concurrently with the French pictures, Messrs. Heels were showing a model flat. F.C. arrived at Heels with de Boucheron, expecting to see her portrait, only to discover that her fiancé had bought the painting from the artist, and, as he triumphantly confessed, burned it. The ensuing fight moved from the gallery to the model flat, and it was on the sofa of the model sitting room that F.C. returned de Boucheron's engagement ring, though not the lease on the Flood Street house, which was to be the crew's London home from then on. De Boucheron, under his real name Perkins Butcher, went to prison in 1925 for issuing a false prospectus. His end is unknown.
I started to tell His Highness about Heels, but when I said French pictures, he got hold of the wrong end of the stick entirely.
French pictures?
Yes, there was a tremendous fuss. The pictures were wallowing in prostitution, that sort of thing. And, of course, those of us who defended them were simply admitting our depravity.
My dear Miss Crewe, you're quite the emancipated woman.
Not at all. What has being a woman got to do with it?
Oh, I agree with you. I was guilty of male prejudice.
In fact, they're probably more to my taste than yours. Surely it's more a matter of culture than gender.
Ah, but we have French pictures of our own. Of course, you have never seen them.
I'm not sure I understand.
In our culture, you see, erotic art has a long history and a most serious purpose. These drawings, for example, if I may be so bold, are the depictions not of depravity, but of precepts towards the proper fulfillment of that side of life which...
And he produced an album of exquisite watercolour miniatures, medieval, I think, which we admired solemnly together. He determined to acknowledge me as an enlightened woman, I determined to be one. Really, what a muddle. And not entirely honest, of course. He insisted I chose one as a gift. No, really,
yes,
I couldn't.
Yes. Which one would you like?
Like pondering a big box of chocolates. Should one go for the Turkish delight or plump for the nut cluster? Well, this one is rather sweet.
Ah, yes.
How very kind. And he invited me to move into the palace for the remainder of my visit. But I got away, finally, in a yellow Studebaker and was brought home at lamplighting time. Thank you very much, Mr. Saeed. Oh, Mr. Das.
Good evening, Miss Crewe. I'm sorry if we frightened you.
And Mr. Kumaraswamy.
Yes, it is me, Miss Crewe.
Good evening. What a surprise.
I assure you, I beg you, we have not come to presume on your hospitality.
I wish I had some whiskey to offer you, but will you come inside?
It will be cooler for you to remain on the veranda.
Let me find Nazrul.
He is not here, evidently. But perhaps now that the mistress has returned, it is permitted to light the lamp?
Oh, yes, of course.
So much more pleasant than sitting in the electric light. There we are. And the moon will clear the housetops in a few minutes. But where is it? Perhaps on the wrong side of the house. Never mind.
Please sit down.
May I take this chair?
No, that's Mr. Das's chair, and this is mine, so that leaves you with the settee.
Never has my fatness received more charming, more delicate acknowledgement. Oh, yes. Very comfortable. Thank you, Miss Crewe. Mr. Das tells me that I was exceeding our rights of acquaintance with you in coming to see you without proper arrangement, and even more so, to lie in wait for you like mulakatis. If it is so, he is blameless. Please direct your displeasure to me.
Miss Crewe does not understand mulakatis.
Petitioners.
In my house, you're always friends.
Mr. Das, what did I tell you?
But what can I do for you?
Nothing at all. We require nothing.
Oh?
Have you had a pleasant day, Miss Crewe?
Extremely interesting. I've been visiting His Highness the Rajah.
My goodness.
I believe you knew that, Mr. Kumaraswamy.
Oh, you have found me out.
He showed me his cars, and we had an interesting conversation about art.
And poetry, of course.
And politics.
Politics, yes. I hope, we both hope, in fact, if we caused you any embarrassment, if you thought for a moment that I personally would have knowingly brought upon you, compromised you by association with...
Stop it. Mr. Das, I'm going to ask you, what is the matter?
The matter?
I shall be absolutely furious in a moment.
Yes, quite so. My friend Kumaraswamy, speaking as president of the Theosophical Society, wishes to say that if His Highness reproached you or engaged you in any unwelcome conversation regarding your connection with the Society, he feels responsible, and yet at the same time wishes you to know...
His Highness never mentioned the Theosophical Society.
Ah?
Not at all, Miss Crewe?
Not at all.
Oh, well, jolly good.
What has happened?
Well, It is really of no interest. I am very sorry to have mentioned it, and we must leave you. It was not right to trouble you after all. Will you come, Mr. Das?
I hope it has nothing to do with my lecture.
Oh, no. Certainly not.
Nothing.
Mr. Das said we should not mention the thing, and how truly he spoke. I am sorry. Good night, Miss Crew.
I am coming, Mr. Kumaraswamy. Please wait for me a moment.
If you expect to be my friends, you must behave like friends and not like whatever you called it. Tell me, what has happened?
Mr. Das.
Please wait.
Well?
The Theosophical Society has been banned, you see. The order came to Mr. Kumaraswamy's house last night.
Why?
Because of the disturbances in the town.
The riot?
Yes, the riot.
I know about it. The Hindus wanted the Muslims to close their shops, but what has that to do with the Theosophical Society?
I am going, Mr. Das.
I come now. Mr. Kumaraswamy is a man with many hats, and His Highness the Raja is not a nationalist. I must leave you, Miss Crew, but may I step inside to fetch my painting away?
If you like.
I do not have my bicycle this evening, so I can manage the easel also.
Mr. Das, did you tell people I was ill?
What do you mean?
That I came to India for my health.
I cannot wait, Mr. Das.
A moment! Why do you ask me that?
He is leaving you behind.
I will walk then.
It seems that everyone, from the Raja to the resident, knows all about me. I told no one except you. If I want people to know things, I tell them myself, you see. I'm sorry to mention it, but if there's something wrong between two friends, I always think it is better to say what it is.
Oh, my dear Miss Crew. It was known long before you arrived in Jumapur. Mr. Chamberlain's letter said exactly why you were coming. Mr. Kumaraswamy told me himself when I began to paint your portrait. But, you see, I already knew from talking with others. This is how it is with us, I'm afraid. The information was not considered to be private, only something to be treated with tact.
Oh.
As for the Raja and the resident, I am sure they knew before anybody. A letter from England to Mr. Kumaraswamy would certainly be opened.
Oh.
You must not blame yourself, please.
Oh. Oh, Mr. Das, I'm so glad. And so sorry. Oh, dear. Have you got a hanky?
Yes, certainly.
Oh, thank you. How stupid I am.
I will fetch the canvas.
Don't take it. If it is still a gift, I would like to keep it just as it is.
Unfinished?
Yes. All portraits should be unfinished. Otherwise it's like looking at a stopped clock. Your handkerchief smells of something nice. Is it cinnamon?
Possibly not. The portrait is yours, if you would like it. Of course, I must take it off the frame for you, or it will not travel easily in your luggage. Perhaps I can find a knife in the kitchen to take out the little nails.
There are scissors on the table.
Ah, yes. Thank you. No, I think I would damage them. May I call Nazrul?
I thought...
Yes, Mr. Kumaraswamy sent him away. He is suspicious of everyone. I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter.
No, there is no hurry.
No. But I'm leaving tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
I think I must. Every day seems hotter than the day before, even at dawn.
Yes, you are right, of course.
But I will see you again, because I'll come back this way to Bombay. By the 10th July, the latest. My boat sails on the 12th.
You may take a later boat.
No, I cannot. My sister... Oh, you'll be horrified, but never mind. My sister is having a baby in October.
That is joyful news.
Oh. Good.
I can keep the painting for you until you come back, if you like.
No, I'd like to have it with me.
Miss Crew, actually I have brought something to show you. I decided I must not show it to you after all, but if we are friends again, I would like you to see it.
What is it?
I left it in my briefcase outside.
I would like to see it.
Well, I will bring it.
All right.
I have wrapped it, although it is itself only a sheet of paper.
Oh, shall I open it?
You must look at it in the light. Let me...
No, not the electric light. I seldom cry, but never in the electric light. Do you mind? There is enough light at the other window. Mr. Coomaraswamy was quite right about the moon. It's going to be a drawing, isn't it? Oh.
Yes? A good joke, is it not? A Rajput miniature by Nirad Das.
Oh. It's the most beautiful thing.
I'm so pleased you like it. Quite witty pastiche.
Are you going to be Indian? Please don't.
I am Indian.
An Indian artist?
Yes.
Yes. This one is for yourself.
You are not offended?
No. I'm pleased. It has rasa.
I think so. Yes, I hope so.
I forget its name.
Shringara.
Yes. Shringara, the rasa of erotic love, whose god is Vishnu.
Yes.
Whose colour is blue-black.
Shama, yes.
It seemed a strange colour for love.
Krishna was often painted Shama.
Yes, I can see that now. It's the colour he looked in the moonlight.
Which only goes to show, when in Rome, etc., and I wish I'd remembered that when I was in Rome, interrupted, next day, oh dear, guess what? You won't approve. Quite right, so I think it's time to go. Love 'em and leave 'em.
May I see?
It's no different from what you read in the book. Though it's a relief not to have Clark Gable butting in all the time. I decided not to tell Mr. Pike about Rome, even though it was several popes ago, and Norman Douglas wouldn't have given a hoot. Let sleeping dogs lie. That's what I say.
You won't approve. Oh dear, guess what? You won't approve.
I wish I'd kept the envelopes. They'd be worth something now to a collector. A philatelist, I mean.
Mr. Pike's footnote talks about the political agent, Captain Durrance.
Gratuitously.
Yes. Why wouldn't you approve of Captain Durrance? Surely it's more likely she meant...
Meant what, Mr. Das?
Well, I don't mean any offence.
Then you must take care not to give it.
Would you have disapproved of a British Army officer, Mrs. Swan, more than an Indian painter?
Certainly. Mr. Pike is spot on there. In 1930 I was working for a communist newspaper, which goes to show that people are surprising. But you know that from your father, don't you?
Why?
He must have surprised you too. The thorn in the lion's paw.
Yes. Yes, I was surprised.
In any case, if you read Flora's words simply for what they say, you would see that when she said I wouldn't approve, she did not mean this man or that man. Flora was ill. As it turned out, she was dying. Cigarettes, whiskey, and men, and for that matter the 100-yard dash, were not on the menu. She didn't need Dr. Guppy to tell her that. No, I would not have approved. But Flora's weakness was always romance, to call it that.
She had a romance with my father, then?
Quite possibly. Or with Captain Durrance, or His Highness the Rajah of Jimapur, or someone else entirely. It hardly matters, looking back. Men were not really important to Flora. If they had been, they would have been fewer. She used them like batteries. When things went flat, she put in a new one.
Sweat collects and holds as a pearl at my throat, lets go and slides like a tongue tip down a Modigliani, spills into the delta, now in the salt lick, lost in the mangroves and the airless moisture, a seed pearl returning to the oyster. Et nos quedamos amore. Oh. David!
You're up!
Up with the dawn. What on earth are you doing?
I'm afraid I came to wake you. Don't you sleep?
Oh, yes, I slept early and woke early.
The grapevine says you're leaving today.
Yes.
I promised you a turn with the Daimler, remember?
Yes.
I wanted to show you the sunrise. There's a pretty place for it only 10 minutes down the road. Will you come?
Can I go in my dressing gown?
Well, better not.
Oh, righto. I'll get dressed.
Good.
Come up.
Writing a poem?
Writing out a poem to send to my sister. I'll be quick.
The damnedest thing happened to me just now.
Can't hear you. Come in. It's quite safe.
That fellow Dastor was on the road. I'm sure it was him.
Well, why not?
He cut me.
What?
I gave him a wave. He turned his back. I thought, well, that's a first.
Oh, there's hope for him yet.
They'll be throwing stones next. What did you say?
Oh, wait, I'm going into the shower.
Oh, do you want any help?
No, thank you, not today. Oh, yes, I do. My towel is in there. Would you bung it on the bed?
Oh, it's very damp.
Yes, second shower today. Out you go.
Oh,
What?
you're reading Emily Eden. I read it years ago.
We'll miss the sunrise.
There's a bit somewhere. She reminds me of you. Off with their heads.
Whose heads? Are you out?
Yes, I'm out. I'll see if I can find it.
Are the two shapes?
Here it is. Listen. Simla, Saturday, May the 25th, 1839. The Queen's Ball came off yesterday with great success. Oh,
What?
nothing. I found your bookmark.
Oh. I'm sort of decent. Wet hair will have to do. It's not my bookmark. I put it in the book for safekeeping.
Where did you get such a thing?
His Highness gave it to me.
Why?
Because he is a Rajah. Because he was feeling generous. Because he hoped I'd go to bed with him. I don't know.
But how could he feel himself in such intimacy with you? Had you met him before?
No. David, oh, it was a muddle.
But my dear girl, in accepting a gift like this, don't you see? Well, it's your lookout, of course.
Here we go.
But I'm in a frightfully difficult position now.
Why?
Did he visit you?
I visited him.
Yeah, I know. Did he visit you?
Mind your own business.
But it is my business.
Because you think you love me.
No, keeping tabs on what His Highness is up to is one of my... I write reports to Delhi.
Oh, heavens.
You're a politically sensitive person, actually, by association with Chamberlain. This sort of thing.
Oh, darling policeman.
Well, how can I ignore it?
Don't ignore it. Report what you like. I don't mind, you see. You mind, but I don't. I have never minded. Oh, look at the sky. We're going to be too late.
Right, come on. Our road is due west. If you know how to drive a car, we'll make it in time.
My suitor came to say goodbye, and now I'm packed, portrait and all, and waiting for Mr. Coomaraswamy to take me to the station in his chariot. I'll post this in Jaipur as soon as I get there. I'm not going to post it here, because I'm not. I feel as fit as two lops this morning, and happy too, because something good happened here which made me feel halfway better about Modi and Gus and getting back to Paris too late. A sin which I'll carry to my grave.
This appears to be about the portrait. F.C. had arranged to return to France to sit for Modigliani in the autumn of 1919, but she delayed, arriving only on the morning of January 23rd, unaware that Modigliani had been taken to hospital. He died on the following evening without regaining consciousness of tuberculosis, aged 35. Thus, the frontispiece of this book shows the only known portrait of Flora Crewe by an unknown Indian artist.
Goodbye, Mr. Das.
Goodbye, Mrs. Swan. Thank you.
If you change your mind, I'm sure Flora wouldn't mind.
No, thank you. But it's my father I'm thinking of. He really wouldn't want it, not even in a footnote, so we'll say nothing to Mr. Pike.
Well, don't put it away in a trunk either.
Oh, no. It will be on the wall at home, and I'll tell my children, too. Thank you for tea. The Victoria sponge was best.
I'm baking again tomorrow. I still have raspberries left to pick, and the plums to come, look. I always loved the fruit trees at home.
At home?
Orchards of apricot, almond, plum. I never cared for the southern fruits, mango, pawpaw, and such like. But up in the northwest, I was quite unprepared for it when I first arrived. It was early summer. There was a wind blowing, and I've never seen such blossom. It blew everywhere. There were drifts of snow-white flowers piled up against the walls of the graveyard. I had to kneel on the ground and sweep the petals off her stone to read her name.
Florence Edith Crewe, born March 21st, 1895, died June the 10th, 1930. Requiescat in Parkem.
I'm afraid it's very simple. I hope that's all right.
Yes, it was good of you.
Oh, no. We look after our own, of course.
I think she would have liked Poet under her name. If I left some money here to pay for it...
There are funds within my discretion. You may count on it, Miss Crewe. Poet. I should have thought of that. It is how we remember your sister.
Really?
She read one evening. The club has a habit of asking guests to sing for their supper. Miss Crewe read to us from her work.
Oh, dear.
Yes. Well, we're a bit behind the times, I expect. But we all liked her very much. We didn't know what to expect because we understood she was a protégé of Mr. Chamberlain, who had lectured in the town some years before. Perhaps you know him?
Yes. I'm not really in touch with him nowadays.
Ah. Yes, it was just about this time of year when she was here, wasn't it? It was clear she wasn't well. These steps we just climbed up, for instance, well, she could hardly manage them. Even so, death in India is often more unexpected, despite being more common, if you understand me. I'm talking far too much. I'm so sorry. I'll wait at the gate. Please stay as long as you wish. I have no one waiting for me.
I won't be a moment. Flora didn't like mopers. Bye-bye, darling. Oh, damn.
I say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please, can I?
I messed up your coat. I've got to hang you somewhere.
Would you like to, here?
Yes, thank you. Oh, I came too soon after all. I hated waiting a whole year, but... Well, anyway, thank you. It's a bit wet. Oh, should I keep it? Oh, look, I found mine. We can swap.
Don't worry about anything. What a shame you had to come on your own. You have another sister, I believe, or a brother?
No. Why?
Oh, well, Flora was anxious to return to England to be an aunt, she said.
Yes, I had a baby in October. He only lived a little while, unfortunately. There was something wrong.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's why I couldn't come before.
Yes, I see. What rotten luck. What was his name?
Sasha. Alexander. Alexander Parcival Crewe. How nice of you to ask. Nobody ever does. Oh, I say, how about that blossom?
Yes. It's quite a spot, isn't it? I hope you stay a while. First time in India?
Yes.
Mind the loose stone here.
Oh,
May I?
Thank you. I'm sorry I blubbed, Mr. Swan.
I won't tell anyone. You do call me Francis, by the way. Nobody calls me Mr. Swan.
Francis, then.
Do you like cricket?
Well, I don't play a lot.
There's a match tomorrow.
Here?
Oh, yes. We're going to field the test team next year, you know.
We?
India.
Oh.
Simla, Saturday, May the 25th, 1839. The Queen's Ball came off yesterday with great success. Between the two tents there was a boarded platform for dancing, roped and arched in with flowers. And then, in different parts of the valley, wherever the trees would allow of it, there was Victoria, God Save the Queen, and Kandahar in immense letters 12 feet high. There was a very old Hindu temple also prettily lit up. Vishnu, to whom I believe it really belonged, must have been affronted. We dined at 6, then had fireworks and coffee, and then they all danced till 12. It was the most beautiful evening. Such a moon, and the mountains looked so soft and grave after all the fireworks and glare. 20 years ago, no European had ever been here, and there we were, with a band playing, and observing that Saint-Cloud's potage à la julienne was perhaps better than his other soups, and that some of the ladies' sleeves were too tight according to the overland fashions for March, and so on. And all this in the face of those high hills, and we 105 Europeans being surrounded by at least 3,000 mountaineers, who, wrapped up in their hill blankets, looked on at what we call our polite amusements, and bowed to the ground if a European came near them. I sometimes wonder they do not cut all our heads off and say nothing more about it.